The stars of the Andros system sparkled brightly across the black canvas of space, each one a distant sun shining for civilizations far away. Among them, a small blue-green planet orbited quietly around its sun, home to the Luraxians. They were a gentle species, slender in shape, with translucent skin that shimmered in soft colors under the light of their twin moons. Their cities glowed like gemstones from space, connected by delicate bridges of energy and light. Though advanced, the Luraxians had always lived cautiously, aware that the galaxy was vast and unpredictable. On the surface of the planet, in the city of Saren, an unusual calm had taken hold. Normally, Saren buzzed with activity, but today a nervous hush hung over the streets. News had come from the northern colonies. A massive cosmic storm was heading straight for them, and no ordinary measures could stop it. The Luraxians had studied storms for centuries, but this one was different. It radiated unstable energy that interfered with their protective shields and threatened to destroy their delicate cities. In the heart of Karen, inside the Grand Hall of Signals, a team of Luraxian scientists worked frantically. Their leader, a sharp-minded Luraxian named Vera, paced back and forth, her translucent form glowing with shades of violet and blue. "The northern colonies won't survive this on their own," she said softly, her voice trembling. "We must send a call for help. But who do we call? The nearby races? They are too far, too slow." Her assistant, a younger Luraxian named Talon, floated beside her. His hands, delicate as they were, manipulated the holographic controls, attempting to encode the distress signal. "There is one possibility," he said carefully. "We could send a long-range signal, one that travels farther than any of our usual communication. Perhaps someone beyond the local clusters might receive it." Vera paused. She knew the risks. A long-range signal could reach unknown species, ones they had never met. It could be dangerous, but they had no choice. The storm approached faster than expected, and time was slipping away. With a determined nod, she turned to Talon. "Do it. Send the signal. We must try." The Luraxians worked together, their minds moving in harmony as they prepared the message. It was a simple plea. "Help us. Our colonies are in danger. We do not have the means to survive the coming storm. Please respond." They encoded it with every protective layer of clarity and honesty, hoping that whoever received it would understand their true intentions. Finally, the signal was ready. Vera placed her hands over the final control panel, and with a soft hum, the message launched into the void of space. It traveled faster than light, jumping through star clusters, weaving past asteroid belts, and threading between the arms of distant galaxies. The Luraxians watched the display, waiting for a response, their hearts heavy with worry. Hours passed. The storm loomed closer, sending ripples of energy across the planet's magnetic fields. Then, the unexpected happened. Across the darkness of space, a tiny flicker appeared on the signal monitors. At first, just a glimmer, barely noticeable. But then it grew, and soon the Luraxians could see it clearly. A fleet of ships, massive and imposing, moving toward their planet at incredible speed. Vera's eyes widened. What is that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The ships were unlike anything the Luraxians had ever seen. They were enormous, far larger than any vessel known in their sector, with hulls that seemed indestructible and surfaces bristling with equipment. They moved with precision and purpose, cutting through the void of space as though they had anticipated this moment for centuries. Talon's voice shook. It is not one of the local races. These are Deathworlders." The word hung in the air. Among the Luraxians, the Deathworlders were legendary. Tales of them filled their history books. Stories of creatures so resilient that no environment could harm them. Vessels so strong that entire fleets could be destroyed by one of them. They had thought of the Deathworlders as a myth, a distant, cautionary tale about the dangers of the galaxy. And now, here they were, Panic rippled through the control room. Alarms sounded, soft but insistent, signaling the approach of the fleet. Citizens outside looked up, eyes wide as the massive shadows of the ships appeared in orbit, dwarfing the city below. The Luraxians had no weapons capable of defending themselves against such power. They were a peaceful species, not designed for war. Vera took a deep breath and activated the communication channel. "This is Vera of Karun," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. We are sending a distress call. Please, we mean no harm. Our planet is in danger. Please. We need help." There was a long pause. Then a deep, resonant voice filled the room. It was unlike anything the Luraxians had heard before, strong, calm, and commanding. "We received your signal," it said. "We are here to help." The Luraxians exchanged glances, relief and terror mixing in their eyes. "Help?" Vera repeated. You understand what we need?" The voice responded simply, "Yes, we are coming." Within moments, the Deathworlder ships began deploying smaller crafts toward the planet's surface. They moved gracefully despite their immense size, adapting effortlessly to the thin atmosphere. The Luraxians watched in awe and fear as the crafts touched down near the northern colonies where the storm was already beginning to ravage the land. The first glimpses of the Deathworlders on the surface were enough to stun anyone who saw them. They were humanoid in shape but far larger than the Luraxians, with powerful forms that radiated resilience. Their armor reflected light in strange ways, and their movements were precise, almost mechanical, yet fluid and controlled. They carried tools and equipment, but nothing that resembled traditional weapons. Vera stepped forward, her hand shaking. We didn't mean to summon you," she said softly. "We only hoped for help. Not this." A large Deathworlder approached her, bending slightly to look down. Its eyes were calm, intelligent, and surprisingly gentle. "You asked for help," it said simply. "We came. Tell us what must be done." For the first time since the storm warning arrived, hope blossomed in Vera's heart. She quickly explained the situation: the approaching storm, the vulnerable colonies, and the inability of the Luraxians to shield themselves from its energy. The Deathworlder listened, nodding slowly, and then began issuing silent commands to its companions. The scene outside the control room became a spectacle of precise organization. Machines rolled out, shields activated, and stabilization units descended to the colonies. Energy barriers shimmered into existence, protecting entire cities from the storm. Rivers that had threatened to flood the colonies were redirected safely, and buildings that might have been destroyed were reinforced with adaptable material that seemed to flow into place. The Luraxians could only watch in amazement. The Deathworlders were not destroying or taking control. They were saving, repairing, and protecting. The very planet seemed to breathe easier as the storm's energy clashed harmlessly against the protective barriers. Vera turned to Talon, tears in her eyes. I don't understand. These beings, they could destroy us in an instant. And yet, they chose to save us." Talon nodded. "Perhaps that is what makes them different. They are strong, yes, but they are not cruel. They understand the value of life." Hours passed and the storm finally dissipated, leaving the northern colonies intact. The Luraxians walked among the Deathworlders, studying their methods, their tools, their sheer presence. They realized that in the galaxy, strength and compassion could coexist. For the first time, they understood that help could come from unexpected places, and sometimes the mightiest beings were also the kindest. That night, as Sirun glowed under its twin moons, Vera looked out over the calm cities. The Deathworlder fleet remained in orbit, a silent but reassuring presence. She whispered softly to herself, "We called for help, and we found more than we imagined. Perhaps We are not alone in this universe after all. Somewhere in the vastness of space, the Deathworlders remained vigilant, ready to assist. Their arrival a promise that the galaxy had surprises yet to show. And in the hearts of the Luraxians, awe, respect, and hope grew, knowing that even in the darkest storms, there were beings capable of protecting life in ways they could never have imagined. The sun rose slowly over the Luraxian world, its warm light spilling across cities that were now calm and orderly. What had been chaos just a few hours before, the northern colonies threatened by the storm, was now a picture of serenity. The energy shields deployed by the Deathworlders shimmered gently, stabilizing the land and protecting the delicate structures of the Luraxian settlements. Yet the Luraxians themselves were restless. Outside their homes, families gathered in small groups, whispering and pointing to the colossal ship still hovering in orbit. Though the storm had passed, fear lingered. The Deathworlders were enormous, their presence overwhelming, and the Luraxians had no experience with beings of such immense strength. Vera walked along the central boulevard of Sarun, her eyes scanning the horizon. She was no longer afraid of what the Deathworlders could do, but she was curious about their purpose, their thoughts, and their connection to the galaxy. Beside her floated Talon, equally awestruck but eager to learn more. They are unlike anything we have ever seen, Talon said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Every movement they make, it is precise, calm, powerful. Vera nodded. And yet, gentle. They could crush us without effort, and yet they chose not to. They chose to save our colonies instead. As they spoke, one of the smaller Deathworlder crafts descended from orbit. Its landing was so smooth that not a single grain of dust rose from the ground. From within emerged a Deathworlder who was slightly smaller than the others, yet still enormous compared to a Luraxian. Its eyes glowed softly with a deep blue hue, and its armor reflected the sun like liquid metal. Vera approached, her hands folded in front of her. "We are honored by your presence," she said. "But we must understand. Why do you help us? We are strangers to you." The Deathworlder tilted its head slightly, its movements calm and deliberate. "Strength is not measured by the ability to destroy," it said in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder but carried warmth. "True strength is the ability to protect. Your planet was in danger. We protect life where we can." The words struck Vera deeply. She had always believed that power came from knowledge and technology, but here was proof that power could also be measured by compassion and courage, the ability to act even when it was not required. Meanwhile, the Deathworlders began organizing their efforts. Cranes and tools extended from their ships, deploying structures that stabilized weak buildings and reinforced bridges that had begun to tremble during the storm. Entire neighborhoods were surveyed with precise scanners, and dangerous areas were marked with glowing beacons to prevent accidents. Talon watched in amazement. "They understand engineering in ways even our most advanced minds cannot," he murmured. "Look at how they repair the damaged buildings. It is as if they can predict the forces before they happen." Vera smiled faintly. "It is more than engineering, Talon. It is understanding life itself, the way it adapts, survives, and grows. That is why they can help us so effectively." As the day passed, more Deathworlders arrived, each one moving with quiet efficiency. They coordinated silently, communicating through gestures and signals that seemed almost instinctive. The Luraxians observed, realizing that this was not a random display of power. It was a carefully planned operation, executed with precision and care. Curious Luraxian scientists approached the Deathworlders cautiously, asking questions about their methods and technology. One particularly bold Luraxian named Myra stepped forward, her translucent skin shimmering in the sunlight. "How do you do this?" she asked, pointing to a bridge that had been reinforced in mere minutes. "Your speed, your precision, it is beyond anything we know." The Deathworlder who had spoken with Vera answered, "We do not rush. We observe, calculate, and act. Every movement has purpose. Every tool is used where it is most effective. You may call it technology, but it is also experience and understanding. Life teaches us lessons. We apply them." Myra nodded slowly. "So your power is not just in strength, but in wisdom." "Yes," the Deathworlder said simply. "Strength without wisdom is dangerous. Strength with wisdom can save worlds." While the Luraxians began to study the Deathworlder's techniques, children in the colonies watched with fascination. What had been a day of fear became a day of wonder. Children ran alongside the smaller crafts, laughing as machines gently lifted debris from the streets and repaired damaged walkways. It was a spectacle unlike any the Luraxians had ever witnessed, a display of power used entirely for protection and restoration. Vera noticed something else as she walked through the city. The Deathworlders did not seek recognition or praise. They moved quietly, their purpose clear, but their presence was not showy. They did not take control of the planet, they assisted. This humility, combined with their extraordinary strength, made the Luraxians feel safe in a way they had never imagined possible. By midday, the northern colonies were stabilized. Energy shields lined the streets, water systems flowed smoothly, and every building that had been at risk was now secure. The storm's energy that had once threatened to devastate the region was now safely contained, redirected into harmless channels. The Luraxians began to speak among themselves in hushed tones. "We called for help," one elder said, and received more than we could have imagined. These beings, they are unlike any in the galaxy. Vera returned to the Hall of Signals to report the progress. Talon followed, still observing the Deathworlders' movements outside. "Do you think they understand us?" he asked. "Or do they just act out of instinct?" "I think they understand more than we know," Vera replied. "They act out of instinct, yes, but it is an instinct guided by intelligence, wisdom, and compassion. That is why their actions are so precise, so effective." Later in the afternoon, a small group of Luraxian diplomats gathered near the central plaza. They had received permission from the council to approach the Deathworlders, formally to offer thanks and perhaps begin communication that might last beyond the crisis. Vera stood among them, her heart pounding. She knew that first impressions were important. If the Deathworlders were capable of understanding gratitude and partnership, this could mark the beginning of something extraordinary for the Luraxians. The leading Deathworlder descended from a hovering craft and landed softly in the plaza. It towered over the Luraxians, but its posture was open and inviting. "You have shown courage in sending your signal," it said. "You asked for help, and you trusted the unknown. That trust is not small, it is remarkable." Vera bowed slightly. "We are grateful," she said. "Your presence has saved countless lives. We cannot fully express our thanks." The Deathworlder's eyes glowed faintly. "Gratitude is not required. Action is enough. Yet, your respect is understood and accepted." Talon stepped forward, his curiosity overcoming his initial hesitation. "Will you teach us?" he asked. "About your methods and your technology with the way you organize and act?" The Deathworlder paused, considering. "Knowledge can be shared, but only with those ready to learn and understand its responsibility. If you wish to learn, you must respect the power you seek to wield. Power is not for dominance, it is for protection, guidance, and understanding." Vera and Talon nodded together. "We understand," Vera said firmly. "We wish to learn, not for war, not for control, but to protect our people, as you protect ours." A subtle vibration passed through the ground as the Deathworlders prepared to demonstrate one of their advanced stabilization units. With a few precise movements, a structure that had been weakened by the storm was reinforced instantly. Energy flows stabilized the soil, bridges realigned themselves, and water channels corrected automatically. The Luraxians watched in awe, understanding for the first time that such knowledge could change the course of their civilization. By evening, the sky glowed with the soft light of twin moons, reflecting off the metallic surfaces of the Deathworlder, fleet still in orbit. The Luraxians gathered to witness the sight, a mix of awe, respect, and hope filling their hearts. The world that had faced imminent disaster now felt safer, stronger, and more united than ever before. Vera stood on a balcony overlooking the city, her thoughts racing. "We called for help," she whispered to herself, "and received more than we could imagine. Not just protection, but guidance. Perhaps we are only at the beginning of understanding what lies beyond our stars." Somewhere above, the Deathworlders remained vigilant. Their presence was a promise, not a warning, a signal to the Luraxians and to the galaxy itself that strength, when paired with wisdom and compassion, could change worlds. And for the first time, the Luraxians understood that the universe was not just a place of danger, but a place of wonder, connection, and unexpected guardianship. The night was calm, but the memory of the approaching fleet and the demonstration of their abilities lingered in every Luraxian mind. They had seen power used for protection rather than destruction, and their hearts were filled with admiration. A new chapter had begun, one that would change their understanding of the galaxy forever. The Luraxians had never seen anything like it. The sky was filled with the gentle hum of hovering crafts, their metallic surfaces reflecting the soft glow of twin moons. The city streets were calm, repaired, and alive with activity, not with panic but with wonder. The Deathworlders had not just saved the colonies, they had transformed them. Vera walked along the central plaza, her mind racing with questions. How could beings so powerful act with such care? How could they wield technology that seemed almost magical, yet remain patient, deliberate, and kind? She stopped beside Talon, who was observing a small group of Deathworlders repairing a collapsed bridge with what looked like invisible energy. "Do you think they ever tire?" Talon asked, eyes wide with amazement. "Look at them. They move faster than any of our machines, but they seem calm. Nothing disturbs them." Vera nodded slowly. "It is not just speed. It is control, understanding. They do not rush. They do not panic. They act with purpose. That is what makes them remarkable." Nearby, Myra, the young Luraxian scientist, approached them, her face glowing with curiosity. "I watched them repair the water channels," she said excitedly. "It was incredible. They lifted entire sections of terrain, realigned it perfectly, and water flowed smoothly again. How do they know what to do? How do they know it will work?" Vera glanced at the Deathworlders in the distance. "They see the world differently," she said. "Perhaps they understand the forces around them, the energy, the matter, the life, and they act in harmony with it. It is more than knowledge. It is insight." The Luraxians could not help but be drawn toward the Deathworlders. Every action the massive beings took was careful and deliberate. Machines floated in midair, guided by unseen forces. Broken buildings lifted themselves and aligned perfectly. Roads and bridges repaired as though invisible hands had touched them. The Luraxians whispered among themselves, their awe and admiration growing by the minute. Vera and Talon approached the largest Deathworlder, the one who had first spoken with them. It stood calmly near the main plaza, observing its surroundings. Vera took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "You have saved our world today," she said softly. "But we want to understand. We want to learn how you do this, not just to survive, but to help others as you help us." The Deathworlder tilted its head, its glowing eyes focusing on her. "Knowledge is not given freely," it said. "It is earned. To use power wisely, one must first understand responsibility. Strength without care can harm. Wisdom without application is wasted. Do you understand this?" Vera nodded firmly. "We do. That is why we wish to learn, not for ourselves, but for our people, to protect, not to destroy." The Deathworlder extended a hand, not threatening but inviting. "Then watch, learn, observe, and when you are ready, act." For the next several hours, the Luraxians followed the Deathworlders as they moved through the northern colonies. Every action was a lesson in precision, patience, and foresight. A damaged water tower was lifted and stabilized in minutes. A fallen bridge was repaired without a single misaligned beam. Streets that had been flooded by the storm were drained, cleaned, and restored to perfection. The Luraxians watched in amazement. Machines floated and rotated in perfect coordination, guided by invisible forces. The Deathworlders themselves moved with the grace of dancers, their massive frames bending, lifting, and adjusting without effort. There was no confusion, no hesitation, no waste. Everything they did had a purpose. Vera stopped to observe a small group of Deathworlders repairing a collapsed marketplace. Stalls that had been smashed by the storm were lifted, rearranged, and restored. Fruit and supplies that had been scattered were sorted and placed back in their original positions. Children watched in awe, giggling as floating crates moved around, like gentle magic. "This is incredible," Talon whispered. "They could do anything they want, but they choose to restore, to protect, to help. That is extraordinary." Myra joined them, her eyes shining. "It is not just the tools," she said. "It is the way they think. They understand the consequences of every action. They anticipate problems before they happen and act before damage occurs. It is more than intelligence. It is foresight." The Deathworlders noticed the Luraxians watching and paused for a moment. One of them approached Vera and spoke. "Observation is the first step. Understanding comes next. Only when you know the patterns, the connections, the results of your actions can you apply knowledge wisely. Watch carefully, learn fully." As the hours passed, the Luraxians began to see patterns. The Deathworlders did not work randomly. Every movement was deliberate. Every tool had a specific purpose. Every repair had a plan behind it, considering not just the immediate problem but the long-term effects. The Luraxians realized that what seemed like effortless magic was actually an extraordinary combination of strength, understanding, and care. By evening, the northern colonies were completely restored. Energy barriers shimmered around vulnerable areas, ensuring safety against any future storms. Streets were cleared and repaired. Buildings stood stronger than before, and the Luraxians, who had feared for their lives only hours earlier, now felt a sense of pride and hope. Vera turned to the Deathworlders, her heart full of gratitude. "You have done more than save our homes," she said. "You have taught us how to see the world differently, how to act with care, foresight, and purpose. We will remember this lesson forever." The Deathworlder nodded. "Strength must serve life. Wisdom must guide action. You have observed. You have listened. You may begin to understand." Children ran toward the restored plaza, laughing and pointing at the floating tools and moving crafts. One of the smaller Deathworlders bent down, allowing the children to touch a piece of its equipment safely. Their laughter echoed across the colony, a sound the Luraxians had not heard in days. Vera smiled at the sight. "Even in the smallest things," she said, "they teach. Protection, care, attention. It is in every movement, every action." Talon looked at her with awe. Do you think they will leave soon?" Vera shook her head slightly. "I do not know, perhaps they will, but their lesson will remain. We have seen what it means to be strong and kind at the same time. That knowledge, that is a gift." As night fell, the Deathworlders gathered near the edge of the colony. Their massive forms reflected the light of the moons, a silent presence that reassured and inspired. Vera and Talon approached one of them. "Will you teach us more?" Vera asked. "We want to learn everything we can, about technology, about protection, about the way you think." The Deathworlder's eyes glowed softly. "Learning is not instant. Knowledge must be absorbed, practiced, and respected. Today you have observed. Tomorrow you may practice under guidance. Strength must always be balanced with understanding. Do you accept this responsibility?" Vera nodded. "We do. We will honor it." The Deathworlder extended a hand, placing it gently on a nearby control device. Energy flowed through it, projecting holographic diagrams into the air. The Laraxians watched in wonder as the schematics of a stabilization unit appeared, showing the flow of energy, the alignment of structural beams, and the distribution of force. "This is incredible," Myra whispered. "It is more than science. It is philosophy in action." The Deathworlder did not speak, but its eyes seemed to affirm her words. Knowledge was not just mechanics, it was purpose. Understanding the world meant understanding consequences, predicting results, and acting with care. The Laraxians spent the rest of the night learning. They took notes, asked questions, and observed closely. The Deathworlders demonstrated repair techniques, energy control, and structural reinforcement. Every lesson was practical, every action deliberate. The Laraxians could feel themselves growing, wiser with each demonstration. By the time the twin moons reached their zenith, the northern colonies were fully restored, and the Laraxians had taken their first steps toward understanding the methods and philosophy of the Deathworlders. The storm that had threatened destruction was now a memory, and the knowledge gained in its aftermath promised a brighter, safer future. Vera looked across the colony, her heart full of hope. "Today we saw what it means to be strong and kind," she whispered to Talon. "We saw that strength is not just for survival, it is for protection, guidance, and understanding. We have much to learn, but now we know it is possible." Above them, the Deathworlders remained in orbit, their presence a quiet reminder that power, when guided by wisdom and care, could save worlds. And for the first time, the Laraxians truly believed in the possibility of guardians beyond their understanding, a hope that would guide them through every challenge yet to come. The morning sun rose over the Laraxian colonies, casting a warm golden glow across cities that now shone brighter than before. The storm had long passed, yet the presence of the Deathworlders remained a constant reminder of both power and protection. The Laraxians walked through the streets with a sense of awe, their eyes following the massive yet careful beings who moved among them. Vera and Talon had been awake since the first light, eager to continue their learning. They met near the central plaza, where a group of Deathworlders had gathered to demonstrate a new technique. This time, not just repairing damage, but enhancing the colonies for long-term stability. "The bridges are strong now," Vera said, her eyes bright. "But I notice the energy barriers are different today. They seem adaptive. Can they respond to new dangers automatically?" One of the Deathworlders nodded. "Yes. They adjust according to changes in the environment. Strength without flexibility is incomplete. Protection must adapt." Talon's eyes widened. "So even if another storm comes, or earthquakes, or other dangers, they will react?" The Deathworlder's glowing eyes met his. "Correct. Understanding the environment allows us to act before damage occurs. Observing patterns is as important as acting." Around them, the Laraxians were beginning to see the depth of the Deathworlders' approach. It was not enough to simply repair what was broken. It was necessary to understand the systems, anticipate problems, and design solutions that could endure. Vera felt a new sense of inspiration rising within her. Humanity's power, she realized, was more than physical. It was intelligence, foresight, and careful action combined. Later that morning, the Laraxians were invited to a demonstration, unlike any they had ever experienced. A massive open field outside the colony had been cleared, and the Deathworlders had arranged various devices, tools, and structural components in preparation. Today, one of the leading Deathworlders announced in a deep, calm voice, "You will see not only what we do, but why we do it. Observation is the first step. Understanding is the second. Application is the final step." Vera stepped forward with Talon and Myra, watching closely as the demonstration began. A small, collapsed structure at the edge of the field was carefully lifted, rotated, and reinforced. Machines moved in perfect synchrony, guided by invisible forces. The Laraxians gasped as the structure appeared to almost rebuild itself, parts aligning flawlessly, energy flowing in perfect harmony. "It's like they see the world differently," Myra whispered. "They don't just repair things, they anticipate the next problem." They think of every detail. The Deathworlder who had spoken to them earlier noticed her fascination. Observation is only the beginning, it said. To truly understand, you must interact. To interact, you must respect the forces you manipulate. Knowledge is useless without responsibility. The Luraxians were given the opportunity to practice under careful guidance. At first they hesitated. Even small tasks seemed impossible. Lifting, beams or adjusting energy flows required a level of precision they could barely comprehend. But the Deathworlders were patient, correcting gently, guiding without force, and encouraging them to try again. Vera took a deep breath and approached a structural component. Following the Deathworlder's gestures, she applied the principles she had observed. Slowly, the beam shifted into place. Energy flows aligned, and the structure held perfectly. A cheer rose among the Luraxians. For the first time, they had not just observed power, they had exercised it responsibly under guidance and succeeded. Talon's turn came next. He hesitated, nervous about making a mistake. But with the Deathworlder's calm encouragement, he adjusted the components, and the system responded flawlessly. He could feel the rhythm, the flow of energy, the logic behind each movement. I understand, he whispered, awe in his voice. It's not just about strength. It's about thinking ahead, predicting, and acting with care. The day continued with various lessons. Energy fields were demonstrated, showing how to stabilize ground, redirect water, and protect fragile structures. Tools were introduced that could lift massive weights effortlessly, yet respond delicately to small objects. The Luraxians learned to coordinate with these tools, combining observation, calculation, and precision to achieve results they had once thought impossible. By afternoon, the atmosphere had shifted. The Luraxians felt not just admiration for the Deathworlders, but inspiration. They had witnessed power used for protection and creation, not destruction. They had learned that wisdom was as important as strength, and that understanding the world required careful observation, patience, and foresight. Vera turned to Talon and Myra, her eyes bright. We are not just learning to repair or protect, she said. We are learning a philosophy, a way to live, to act, to use our abilities for good. That is what makes these beings extraordinary. Around them, the Deathworlders continued their work. They interacted with children and adults alike, allowing the Luraxians to ask questions, touch tools safely, and try simple demonstrations. Laughter echoed through the field as children experimented with small devices, guided by patient and careful hands. The city felt alive in a new way, not just because it was safe, but because its inhabitants were learning to grow stronger alongside their protectors. As evening approached, the Luraxian Council gathered to observe the final demonstration of the day. A previously damaged tower was lifted, reinforced, and enhanced with adaptive energy barriers. The structure now had sensors to detect environmental changes, adjust energy flows, and withstand natural threats. The council members, who had once feared for their cities, watched in silent awe. This is beyond anything we could have imagined, said one elder. They have not just repaired our colonies. They have taught us how to see, how to act, how to prepare. This knowledge, it will change our civilization. Vera stepped forward, addressing the Deathworlders. We are grateful, she said, her voice steady. You have done more than protect us. You have taught us. You have inspired us. We hope this is only the beginning of a relationship between our species. The leading Deathworlder inclined its head. Understanding must be earned through observation, practice, and responsibility. Today you observed and practiced. Tomorrow you may apply. Knowledge is not a gift. It is a responsibility. Will you accept it? Vera's voice was firm. We will. We accept this responsibility. We wish to learn, not to dominate, but to protect, guide, and build. The Deathworlder's eyes glowed softly, as if acknowledging the commitment. Around them smaller crafts hovered, projecting holographic diagrams and schematics. Luraxians crowded closer, studying, asking questions, learning. Each new piece of knowledge was an opportunity to grow, to strengthen their civilization, to prepare for challenges they had never faced before. As night fell, the field was quiet but alive with the soft hum of energy and movement. The Lyraxians walked among the Deathworlders, reflecting on what they had learned. The lesson was clear. True strength was not in power alone, but in wisdom, foresight, and care. To protect life, one must understand it, anticipate danger, and act responsibly. Vera looked up at the sky where the massive fleet still orbited silently. "We called for help," she whispered to herself, "and received more than we imagined. We received knowledge, guidance, and inspiration. They have shown us what it means to be strong and good." Talon joined her, his face lit with wonder. "Do you think we could ever reach this level? Could we become like them, strong, wise, careful?" Vera smiled softly. "We can, but it will take time, patience, and understanding. We have learned the first lesson. Strength must serve life. If we remember that, we can grow stronger every day." The Deathworlders stood quietly among the Lyraxians, their presence a reminder of possibility. They did not demand admiration or obedience. They simply acted guided by knowledge and care, showing that power could be a force for protection, growth, and inspiration. Through the night, the Lyraxians discussed what they had seen. Children slept peacefully, adults studied diligently, and the council began planning ways to incorporate the lessons of the Deathworlders into their daily lives. The city, once threatened by a storm, now brimmed with hope, knowledge, and determination. Vera paused one last time on a balcony, gazing at the calm, repaired city below. "We were weak," she whispered. "We were fragile. But we are learning. And if we continue to follow their example, if we continue to act with care, wisdom, and foresight, we will grow strong, not just in body or technology, but in spirit." Above them, the Deathworlders remained vigilant, a silent presence and a guiding light. Their work had not ended with the storm. It had only begun. Through teaching, demonstration, and patient guidance, they had planted seeds of knowledge, resilience, and hope. And in the hearts of the Lyraxians, awe and inspiration grew, shaping a future that promised safety, wisdom, and the possibility of greatness. The stars twinkled in the night sky, reflecting off the towers, bridges, and energy barriers. For the first time, the Lyraxians understood that the galaxy was not just a place of danger, but a place of guidance, guardianship, and the potential for extraordinary friendship. And for them, the journey of learning, growth, and alliance with the Deathworlders had only just begun. The first rays of sunlight glimmered across the Lyraxian world, illuminating cities that now thrived under the guidance and protection of the Deathworlders. The northern colonies, once threatened by the violent storm, were now shining examples of strength, wisdom, and resilience. Energy barriers shimmered gently, bridges and roads were perfectly aligned, and every building stood secure. Yet beyond the physical restoration, the Lyraxians felt something even more extraordinary, a sense of hope and understanding that had never existed before. Vera walked through the central plaza, where the citizens of Karen had gathered. Families spoke quietly in groups, pointing toward the remaining Deathworlders in their hovering crafts. Children ran around, laughing and experimenting with the safe tools that the massive beings had left for them to explore. The city was alive with curiosity and admiration, and for the first time the Lyraxians felt truly united in purpose. "This is remarkable," Myra said, standing beside Vera and Talon. "Not only did they save our homes, but they also taught us how to think, to plan, to protect. I have never seen anything like it in our history." Talon nodded. "We were afraid at first," he admitted. "But now I understand. They could destroy us in an instant if they wanted, yet they chose to help. They chose to guide us. That is extraordinary." The Deathworlders, massive yet calm, observed the citizens with quiet patience. They did not demand attention, nor did they seek recognition. Their actions alone, repairing, protecting, teaching, spoke louder than words ever could. And yet, the Laraxians were eager to show gratitude. Vera stepped forward, her heart pounding with both pride and respect. "We wish to honor you," she said to the nearest Deathworlder. "Your guidance has changed our civilization. Your presence has shown us a new way to live, strong, wise, and careful. We hope this is the beginning of a lasting relationship between our species." The Deathworlder's glowing eyes regarded her with calm understanding. "Respect is acknowledged," it said. "Your people have observed, learned, and begun to practice. Knowledge is not a gift, it is a responsibility. You have accepted it. That is the foundation of trust." Around the plaza, the citizens of Karun began to gather. Council members approached, carrying symbols of their gratitude, ornamental crystals, and plaques representing peace, wisdom, and unity. The Deathworlders did not react with surprise. Their purpose had never been to seek reward, yet they understood the gesture. "We wish to offer an alliance," Vera continued, "not only as a sign of gratitude, but as a promise that we will protect and support each other in the future. We have learned from you that strength is meaningful only when paired with responsibility. We wish to share knowledge, to cooperate, and to grow together." The Deathworlder paused, its eyes glowing faintly as it processed the request. Then, slowly, it nodded. "An alliance can be formed," it said. "It must be based on mutual respect, understanding, and the willingness to learn from each other. You have shown the first signs of wisdom. Together, knowledge can grow, protection can extend further, life can flourish." A ripple of excitement ran through the crowd. For the Laraxians, this was more than an agreement. It was the beginning of a new era. They were no longer isolated in the galaxy, no longer limited by their fears or fragility. The Deathworlders' presence and teachings had opened doors to possibilities they had never imagined. Over the following days, the Laraxians worked closely with the Deathworlders. They learned advanced stabilization techniques, energy manipulation, and predictive modeling. Every task was approached with care and patience, with the Laraxians slowly gaining confidence in their newfound abilities. Children practiced alongside, the adults learning the principles of foresight, responsibility, and harmony. Vera observed with pride as her people adapted quickly. They began to understand that strength alone was not enough. It had to be guided by wisdom. Mistakes were corrected, gently, and lessons were repeated until mastery was achieved. The city transformed, not just physically but mentally and culturally. One afternoon, a group of young Laraxians approached Vera with a question. "Do you think they will leave?" one of them asked. "We have learned so much from them. Will they go back to their own world?" Vera looked toward the orbiting fleet, the massive ships reflecting the light of the sun. "They may leave," she said, "but the lessons they taught us will remain. We carry their knowledge, their philosophy, and their example. That is far more important than their presence." Talon added, "And perhaps we will see them again. They have promised guidance when needed. They are not just protectors, they are teachers, guardians, and allies." In the evenings, the Deathworlders held sessions with the Council, sharing strategies for long-term safety and growth. They discussed ways to stabilize the environment, improve infrastructure, and protect citizens from natural threats. Every discussion emphasized responsibility, foresight, and care. The Laraxians absorbed this knowledge eagerly, asking questions, experimenting under supervision, and learning to apply what they observed. As days turned into weeks, the alliance grew stronger. The Deathworlders had shown the Laraxians that true strength was not measured by force alone, but by the ability to understand, predict, and protect. The Laraxians, in turn, contributed their own insights about energy manipulation, environmental awareness, and community coordination. Together, the two species formed a unique partnership, each learning from the other, each growing stronger as a result. One day, Vera stood at the edge of the northern colonies, overlooking the repaired and enhanced city. The once threatened homes now gleamed with stability. Bridges arched gracefully across waterways and energy barriers shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Citizens moved confidently through the streets, smiling, learning, and thriving. "They have changed everything," Myra said softly. "Not just the buildings or the streets or the bridges, but the way we think, the way we live. We are not the same people we were before." Vera nodded. "And that is their gift," she said. "Not just protection, but inspiration. Not just power, but guidance. We now understand what it means to act with wisdom, to protect and to grow responsibly. That is something no storm, no threat, can ever take away." As the twin moons rose in the evening sky, the Deathworlders gathered for one final demonstration before their departure. They lifted massive components, adjusted energy fields, and showed the Laraxians how to monitor environmental stability over long periods. Every action was precise, deliberate, and purposeful. The Laraxians watched, taking careful notes, asking questions, and practicing under guidance. They understood that the demonstration was not only about technology, it was about philosophy. Strength was not to be flaunted or used for dominance. Wisdom guided action, foresight prevented harm, and responsibility ensured protection. When the demonstration ended, the Deathworlders stood silently. Vera stepped forward, her hands folded in respect. "You have done more than we could ever ask," she said. "You have saved our world, taught us and inspired us. We will honor your lessons and pass them on to every generation." The leading Deathworlders' eyes glowed softly. "You have observed, practiced, and committed. Knowledge is now yours to apply. Use it wisely, protect your people, prepare for the future, and remember, strength guided by wisdom creates life. That is the true measure of power." As the fleet began to rise into orbit, the Laraxians gathered to watch. The massive ships moved in perfect formation, their metallic surfaces reflecting the twin moons. Though their presence would soon leave, their lessons, guidance, and philosophy would remain forever. Vera turned to the council and citizens. "We are not alone," she said, her voice strong and clear. "We have allies in the galaxy. We have learned from those who are stronger, wiser, and kinder than we could have imagined. And now we are ready to face the future, together, stronger than ever before." The children waved as the crafts disappeared into the night sky, and the adults nodded with determination. The city glowed under the moonlight, a symbol of knowledge, resilience, and hope. The alliance formed that day was not only a bond between species, but a promise, a commitment to act with wisdom, to protect, and to inspire. In the weeks that followed, the Laraxians began applying everything they had learned. They rebuilt areas previously untouched by the storm, enhanced energy systems, and trained their citizens in foresight and responsibility. The lessons of the Deathworlders had planted seeds of strength and wisdom that would grow for generations. Vera walked through the plaza one last time, smiling at the thriving city. "We called for help," she whispered, "and received more than we could ever imagine. We received guardians, teachers, and allies, and perhaps most importantly, we received inspiration. The courage to grow, to protect, and to act with wisdom." Above the horizon, the faint glimmer of the departing Deathworlder fleet lingered. It was a reminder that in the vastness of the galaxy, there were beings who acted not for dominance but for protection. And in the hearts of the Laraxians, the lessons of strength, wisdom, and responsibility would endure forever. The night was calm, peaceful, and filled with possibility. The Laraxians had faced fear and uncertainty, and emerged stronger, wiser, and united. They had learned that the universe was not only a place of danger, but a place of guidance.